Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we will see what prawns are. When we talk about beings that have completely redefined what we understand as extraterrestrial life, in modern cinema, it's impossible to overlook the peculiar, enigmatic, and unforgettable prawns. These creatures, known by their nickname due to their crustacean-like appearance, not only star in a powerful story, they are, in themselves, a symbolic embodiment of the darkest, most complex, and embarrassingly human corners of our collective existence. Their appearance in the masterful District 9, a film written and directed by the always daring Neill Blomkamp, marks a turning point in the science fiction genre. This is not a typical alien invasion story, nor a heroic tale where humanity triumphs over the unknown. On the contrary, Blomkamp dares to strike a raw nerve with a brutally honest proposal that weaves documentary harshness with dystopian science fiction to ruthlessly explore themes like discrimination, xenophobia, oppressive bureaucracy, and the moral decay of modern societies. It all begins with an event that reshapes the recent history of the planet. A colossal alien ship is suspended, motionless and silent, in the sky over Johannesburg, South Africa. There are no signs of attack or peaceful contact, only uncertainty. Weeks later, a human team decides to enter the ship, where they find something that will forever change the perception of the other. Tens of thousands of malnourished alien beings, aimless and without apparent social structure, completely stranded in a foreign world. Instead of offering a helping hand, humanity, in an unsettlingly familiar attitude, decides to confine them. They are assigned to a refugee camp, a kind of legal and social limbo, which over time degrades into a ghetto rife with misery and violence. District 9. There, the aliens are treated like a plague, a logistical problem, living merchandise to be controlled and exploited. It is impossible not to see in this dynamic an explicit parallel with apartheid regimes, current migration crises, and systemic mechanisms that perpetuate exclusion. But if we look more closely at the prawns, a derogatory name reflecting human disdain for the unknown, we discover much more than strange creatures. Their appearance is undoubtedly unsettling. Bipedal, with rough skin and a greenish hue, large and deep eyes that, despite their exoticism, express real emotions. They have tentacles around their mouths that could function both for feeding and communication, and their limbs, though different from humans, allow them to manipulate tools with surprising precision. Far from being mere primitive beings, the prawns are remarkably intelligent. They can understand human language, negotiate, build, repair, and possess a technological culture that surpasses humanity's by centuries. Their biotech weaponry, for example, can only be activated by their own DNA, a safeguard that protects them from being completely stripped of their technology. Among their devices, the fearsome arc gun stands out, an energy weapon capable of vaporizing human bodies in seconds. But the jewel of their arsenal is the combat exoskeleton, a bipedal machine, almost like a mecha, combining brutality, elegance, and lethal efficiency. One of the strangest and most memorable details about these beings is their fascination with cat food. This common product becomes, within District 9, a drug, an obsession, a currency that humans vilely use to manipulate, bribe, and oppress. What for us is a trivial item becomes for them a symbol of dependency, addiction, and control. It's a perfect example of the ironic and deeply human approach with which Blomkamp constructs his story. In this oppressive environment, an exceptional figure emerges, Christopher Johnson. Unlike most of his peers, he is not just a survivor. He is a silent leader, a devoted father, an engineer of immense brilliance. Through his character, we are shown fragments of prawn civilization, a distant planet, possibly caste-organized, with advanced technology and complex social structures. His goal is neither revenge nor destruction. It is to return home to save his people, Christopher embodies the best of his species. His emotional intelligence, long-term planning ability, and willingness to cooperate with a human, Wikus van der Merwe, the protagonist, make him an essential counterpoint to the widespread cynicism of the rest of the cast. In many ways, Christopher is more human than humans, nobler than those who oppress him, and braver than those who despise him. By his side, even the most violent acts of his species are understood as desperate responses to a brutal system that condemns them. Wikus' story, a middle-class bureaucrat who undergoes a metamorphosis after exposure to an alien fluid, functions as the film's narrative axis, but also as a metaphor. His transformation is not only biological, but moral, from a system agent to a victim, and finally, an ally. As his body changes, so does his perception of the other. What begins as a mere workplace accident becomes a radical awakening of consciousness. This fluid, by the way, reveals another fascinating aspect of alien biotechnology: its ability to alter the DNA of other species. Scientifically speaking, we are dealing with unprecedented genetic reprogramming technology capable of turning a human into a prawn hybrid. It's not just about weapons or spaceships. We're talking about master-level genetic manipulation, probably used in their world for much more complex purposes than we can imagine. Meanwhile, down in the dusty streets of District 9, life goes on. The prawns survive by trading pieces of technology for food, being extorted by human gangs, and facing the daily scorn of a society that considers them inferior. It's a miserable existence, marked by structural violence and global indifference. But it's also an existence full of resistance, small gestures of hope, and a potential that, if ever unleashed, could change everything. When necessity strikes hard and there is no other option, even the most advanced beings are forced to stoop to the most basic and elemental level, surviving at any cost. And that is exactly what the aliens popularly known as prawns do without exception. In the dirtiest and most forgotten corners of District 9, these creatures survive by scavenging through garbage, among inert remains and human waste, hoping to find something that can still fill their hungry stomachs. This act, so simple and everyday, hides a profound tragedy. Intelligent beings reduced to rummaging through the waste of a civilization that has marginalized and turned them into outcasts. But they don't only look for food among the debris. There is also a very peculiar object that awakens in them an almost irrational and obsessive fixation: tires. Yes, car tires, those rubber rings that for humans are just technical components, but for them are almost precious relics. This is not a strange or casual behavior, but a true obsession that borders on ritual. The prawns fiercely fight over the possession of a whole tire, with an aggressiveness and intensity that surprise and terrify those who watch them. Beyond a mere whim, rubber represents something for them that transcends nutrition. They savor it, enjoy it, and venerate it as if it were a candy or an exquisite delicacy. Wikus van der Merwe, the human protagonist of the story, even compares this fixation to the human love for marshmallows or any other pleasurable sweet. For the prawns, rubber is not simply food. It is a sensory pleasure, a kind of drug or delight that stimulates their senses. Although the film does not clarify whether they actually obtain nutrients or energy from rubber, it is clear that their digestive system can process it to some extent. Everything indicates that this fixation responds more to a physiological need, an addiction that goes beyond nutrition, than to true dietary dependence. But if their diet and behavior are striking, the way they reproduce is even more surprising and challenges many of our preconceived ideas about biology. The prawns do not need partners to perpetuate their species. Each individual is hermaphroditic, carrying both male and female reproductive systems, which allows them to self-fertilize. On a planet ruled by a dominant species obsessed with control and segregation, this ability represents an existential threat. It means that prawns can multiply without limits, without the need for social interaction, without barriers or rules to restrict their expansion. This fact forces human authorities to intervene with drastic and brutal measures. The solution they implement is direct, though ruthless, interrupting the reproductive cycle before it progresses. The eggs are systematically extracted and aborted before reaching an advanced stage of development. The macabre part is that each egg is connected to an artificial nutritional source, usually a dead animal such as a pig or a cow, from which it obtains nutrients to grow. This connection, both symbiotic and creepy, reflects the degree of biological experimentation humans have imposed on the prawns. Of course, the adults defend their eggs with ferocity, bordering on desperation. They know those little ones represent the continuity of their species, and every attempt to extract eggs causes violent outbreaks that the MNU, the military organization controlling District 9, tries to avoid by conducting these operations secretly when the parents are not present to minimize conflicts and prevent chaos. And although this whole framework is already unsettling, the most impressive aspect lies in the young prawns, the juveniles. From an early age, these little ones demonstrate an intelligence that seems almost impossible for beings living under such adverse conditions. They interact with biomechanical devices, understand complex structures, and manipulate technologies that even humans can barely comprehend. Unlike many species that undergo complete metamorphosis, prawns progress to adulthood through a series of molts of their exoskeleton, shedding layer by layer, like peeling off old skin to reveal an improved new version of themselves. But it's not all hard science and biology. Amid this tense and dark atmosphere, a disturbing rumor has begun to spread, talks of interspecies sexual relations. Although the film barely touches this topic subtly, it has sparked heated debates in the fan and theorist communities. Is it possible that prawns have some biological compatibility with humans? Could they, like certain terrestrial hermaphroditic mollusks, cross their reproductive boundaries with other species? There is no official confirmation, but the doubt lingers, floating like an uncomfortable shadow that deepens the mystery surrounding these beings. Among the most passionate circles, some fans have nicknamed the prawns Polypqua, an unofficial name never recognized by Blomkamp or the film's creators, but which has deeply penetrated the culture of the most devoted followers as a way to honor or even mythologize these creatures. On the other hand, the nickname prawns has a curious and real history. It doesn't come from their aquatic habitat, nor from any relation to marine crustaceans, but from South African soil. Specifically, it arises by analogy with a local insect considered a pest, the Polua prawns, a type of cricket or grasshopper associated in South African culture with dirt and destruction. This comparison was inevitable for the human inhabitants of District 9, and so the nickname was born, not just as a simple descriptive label, but as a derogatory and dehumanizing term designed to mark difference and justify the marginal treatment these beings receive. But perhaps the most disturbing, and at the same time the most fascinating, is a theory that has gained strength and acceptance among certain groups of researchers and fans. The idea that the prawns are not an original or natural species, but the result of a biotechnological experiment, a genetically manipulated race, designed and created by an even more advanced civilization, possibly extinct, that conceived these beings as workers, colonizers, or soldiers for their own purposes. And their origin, terrifyingly, could be human. Imagine a scenario where captured humans are subjected to genetic and biomechanical transformation processes, altered to such an extent that their physical and genetic form becomes unrecognizable, but still bears traces of humanity, abandoned on a remote planet, forced to evolve on their own. In this theory, the mysterious black liquid that slowly transforms wekas is a mutagen, a catalyst capable of rewriting human DNA to make it compatible with the biological structure of the prawns. The most striking thing is that this liquid would not be simply a conventional chemical substance. Rather, it would be an advanced form of living nanotechnology, an intelligent network of micro-devices that not only destroy or heal, but reconstruct tissues, integrate biomechanical systems with living cells, and alter entire organisms to synchronize them with technologies impossible to understand from our current perspective.